Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the closing press conference of the 14th session of the Conference of the Parties to the UNCCD. My name is Wagaki Vishnevsky. I am the media officer at the UN Convention to Combat Desertification. And today we have the COP president, Minister Prakash Javadekar. We also have with us the Executive Secretary of the UNCCD to give us a briefing on the outcomes of the COP. I will ask them to make a few short statements at the very beginning, and then I will open the floor to questions. We have a very short window, so what we will do during the question and answer session, we will take the questions and then they will respond. With that, Excellency COP President, you have the floor.
Welcome everybody for this closing press conference, after which there will be closing plenary in which we will adopt Delhi Declaration, which is not only futuristic but ambitious statement of global action by each country how to achieve land degradation neutrality. Because land is an important asset in a growing population, so every meter of land needs to be used, and it can be done now. Restoration of land which was not possible has now become possible because of science, technology, prosperity achieved by various countries, so we can invest in such programs. And therefore, the biggest achievement of this COP14 was, and my friend Ibrahim Cheu has really led it from the front right from day one and has guided the deliberations so that it became a very positive COP14. There were no controversies, a flawless, seamless COP that has happened. After all, people have realized issues of land tenure, land degradation, different ways, and gender, importance of gender, and in India we have done it. Now land ownership is in many states is joint ownership of husband and wife. And already we have done land reforms in 1950s, which have given ownership to the tiller. So, we have taken strides in land management, and therefore a small piece of land, if it is not producing or degraded, every farmer wants to do it. And governments, this input aid, 145 million farmers getting 6,000 rupees a year for next 10 years is essentially input help for, that includes land restoration also. So, it is an incentive, and Narendra Modi ji opened it, the high-level segment, 160 countries, 70 ministers, more than 8,500 delegates. This was the most successful COP, we can say, and therefore for next 2 years, India will be the presidents. We have the presidency for next 2 years. I can say that India is committed for our own actions in our country to ensure that more and more degraded land is restored. We are already working on climate change also very effectively. In biodiversity also, we are now not only mapping and documenting, but improving our biodiversity. Thereby, I always believe that in all three, climate, biodiversity and desertification conventions have to work in synergy. And that synergy is the viewpoint of India, and therefore we will be successful. I also thank all the delegates and all the countries who participated wholeheartedly. That was real churning, brainstorming, and good ideas have come. So thanks everybody, and I hand over this now to Ibrahim Chobuk. It is essentially his efforts, relentless efforts which have made this a success.
Thank you very much, Minister. COP President, he is very modest when he said that India will assume the presidency for the next 2 years. It is actually Dr. Prakash Javadekar who will be the COP President for the next 2 years. And what I understand is that he is going to be a very active COP President. You heard the Minister talking about the very high number of participants. We have had a flawless COP with so many participants. What you may not know is the inside, how it works from inside and how many meetings are being organized in parallel, how many processes are being discussed in parallel, how many night sessions in contact groups. It was all well organized, and all of that requires logistics, and the India team has done extremely well. You know that we have had a number of specific days for this COP. We had a day dedicated to gender issues, a day dedicated to drought, we had sun and dust storms, we had local authorities that came back to UNCCDCOP for the first time since the first COP. So it was very good to have local authorities because they are the ones that manage land. We had very successful business day with very clear messages, and more importantly, we had a very dynamic youth that came to participate, and civil society organizations, of course, in addition to negotiators. The Delhi Declaration is a powerful document. I hope you will take time to read it and maybe communicate about the messages coming from the declaration. As for myself, I have 4 takeaways from this COP. First is that there is the very clear link between land restoration and climate and biodiversity. These links have been established now, and participants to this COP have taken that message back to New York, especially, as you know, we will have in the next few days a very high-level summits in New York. So investing in land, unlocking a lot of opportunities, including responding to the climate crisis. As with land restoration, we will be able to bring the carbon back to the soil, because the carbon belongs to the soil. It should have never been emitted. But at the same time, by restoring land, we are also responding to multiple other needs. The second takeaway message is that the business case for land restoration has been made very clearly. In particular, when the business came to meet on Saturday, I think it was, they came up with very clear messages requesting governments to regulate land restoration so as to avoid a number of challenges that we know are associated with investments on land, so as to make sure that communities are not deprived from their land rights, and that when business comes to invest, that the framework is clear and the governance of that process is also clear. The business sector also called for incentives to be put in place so as to incentivize investments on land restoration. These are very key messages. The third message that I take away from this COP is that parties have finally woken up to the issue of drought, that with climate change, we will see more and more severe droughts, and we will have more and more frequent droughts. By the way, droughts and floods, most of the time being associated, in some cases, in some years during the same season, you may have droughts and flood in the same country. Parties have negotiated a decision on drought, which I think will be a landmark. And fourth message is that parties have now come to conclude that land restoration will not succeed until we put people first. So it is not only about biophysical aspects of land restoration, but really about women, about youth, about health, about economy, security. Land restoration is one of the contributions to creating conditions for peace and prosperity in the world, and therefore contributing to different aspects. Land rights are also part of that scheme about the human dimension. So I think I'll stop there. Wagaki, if you would like to maybe help us organize the rest of the conversation.
Okay, so we've got to do this very quickly because we do not have a lot of time. We're eating into COP time now. So please, when you ask the question, be very succinct, and please introduce yourself and say which media you're covering. I'll take the first 5 questions, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, Jeshri. Use the microphone, please.
In the beginning, you had said that there would be 30 decisions, around 30 decisions, 30 important decisions. Have those decisions been taken? And what are the highlights of the Delhi Declaration?
Second, the back. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Nivedita. My question is to both of them. At the start of the COP, there was this discussion about money needed for land restoration activities. So at the end of the COP, are you satisfied with the kind of investment proposals or funding that is available now?
Thank you. At the back. There's somebody who put their hand at the back. Yes.
Yeah, hi. My name is Ishan. I'm from Down to Earth. My question is both to Mr. Thiaw and Mr. Javadekar. First question is, sir, can you hear me? Yeah. So my first question is, which were the most difficult decisions or issues that the parties agreed to, the most contentious ones? And my second question is to Mr. Javadekar. Sir, we have talked about land management, tenurial security and everything, but in India, millions of forest dwellers, indigenous peoples are there in the Supreme Court fighting for their survival and their future, and the central government is not representing them. Even yesterday, the central government lawyer wasn't there. How do you reconcile both these situations? Thank you.
Which case?
The wildlife first and the FRA case, sir.
Okay. And there were 2 in the middle there. Okay, yes.
Hello, I'm Vishwamohan. I'm from Times of India newspaper. Till what time will get the Delhi Declaration? Is it expecting this evening? And,
Yes.
Yeah, and my question is, will there be any global target for land restoration? Whatever is there in the Bonn Challenge, will there be a definite global target for achieving this land degradation neutrality?
Okay. And the last one here.
Hello, sir. My name is Ayush Garg. I'm from Yarn Express. We are a defense publication. My question is to Prakash Javadekar, sir. Sir, Paris has started that even after the declaration has been made, many countries back out in the following years. So, does the Delhi Declaration include any provisions, any penalty clauses, something like that, to ensure that the implementation is done of what is pledged today?
Okay. So, Excellency, you have the floor.
First, as far as relevant question was that the forest rights, let me clear our government stand. Government believes and is committed to give titles to all the legitimate forest dwellers, and we have allotted in last 5 years millions of land titles. And therefore, when this first decision of Supreme Court came, we immediately filed the affidavit in favor of forest rights, and therefore that decision was stayed by the court itself. And so our position is very clear as far as whether the advocate was there or not. That's a technical issue which I don't have the information. But our stand is very clear, and we are committed to that. Because we believe that in forest development, forest dwellers and tribals are part of development strategy. So they protect forest, they nurture forest, and they live with the forest, and therefore government has given minimum support price in our first tenure, and in second tenure we have increased the minimum support price for forest produce. So that's our stand.
But
as far as
what's a
Delhi
follow-up?
declaration is concerned, Delhi declaration will be, I think it will be out by 5 o'clock as we are winding up now. And in 1.5 hours it will be over. That's my expectation, because I am president, so I'll be also free early. So then, as you asked, some countries are backing out after Paris. But Paris ratification, and here there is no that way, that is the difference. In climate change, it's a global action, a global problem, a global solution, global action is needed. So somebody withdrawing, it's a local action, each country's commitment for betterment of earth. And therefore, here every country has committed its own program. And so there is no issue of backing out. That's all from my side.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Most decisions that have been negotiated would go through some committees. I will simplify. I think the committee is meeting as we speak, the last committee meeting, and therefore it will be taken for just a formality of adoption, but negotiations have already taken place. So I do not expect any party to reopen negotiations. The same for the Delhi Declaration, which is essentially to be adopted now by the final session. With regards to contentious issues, all decisions are contentious because every parties have different expectations on different decisions. But the two decisions that took more time to conclude at this COP were the decision on land rights, land tenure, and the decision on drought. The latter was actually being negotiated until this afternoon. So these are very important outcomes, I think, from this conference of the parties. With regards to global targets, as you know, we have the Sustainable Development Goals, and each goal has targets. Goal 15 is the goal related to life on land, and has target 3, which is on land degradation neutrality. So global targets have already been set as part of the Sustainable Development Goals. We are now countries, and you heard the Prime Minister Modi at the opening saying that he is adding 5 million hectares to the already goal that was target that was established of 21 million hectares, bringing it to 26 million hectares. So countries one by one are setting their targets so as to be contributing to the global goals. So we expect countries to implement their targets where they have set them up, or maybe do as India did to elevate the target, the ambition. We also hope those countries that have not yet clarified their national targets to do so, because we need to reduce the degradation of our land that we see at the moment. With regards to business, there are economic studies that have been done have all proven that investing on land restoration is a profitable business, but we are not seeing business rushing into land restoration as of now. So therefore, this COP has also helped clarify, including through the land tenure decision, how this should be regulated at the national level. So obviously, each nation as a sovereign state will design and implement their own national policies with regards to investments on land restoration, be it on public land or where appropriate in community lands where negotiations could happen for some sort of concessional agreements. But these are technicalities that should be discussed in each and every nation.
Okay, thank you. I will take a second round, and this might be the last one, but I would want to ask if there are international journalists first. This round will be for international journalists, if there are any that want to ask a question. Okay, then next I open the round to everybody else. One. Any more questions? Okay, we'll take that one then.
Hi sir, I'm
And
Kundan.
second at the back.
I'm
Okay.
Kundan Pandey from Down to Earth magazine. I have a question to Mr. Theo. Sir, you said that few countries have not decided their target yet. So can you clarify how many countries have not?
Say that again, but please speak slowly.
So you have said.
Okay. Second question at the back.
Okay, my name is Ruben from Ghana. Short one. I would want to find out from Executive Secretary what has been the position and the body language of reps from Africa, because land restoration issues are very huge, and I want to know, has their body language been positive in terms of the help to fight this?
Okay. I think you have the floor to respond, and I will also ask you to make your closing remarks as you do so. Thank you.
On the first question, out of the 170 countries that have declared that they are affected by land degradation, 122 have already set their targets. This has been happening only over the last 3 years, so we still have to complete that list. Most of the countries that are severely affected have already completed their target setting. And some countries may need support from the UNCCD Secretariat, some may not need support. So I think it is work in progress, but we have made a lot of progress over the last 3 years. With regards to Africa, what is the body language? Africa is, together with Asia, the two regions that are most affected by land degradation. Asia more by the number of people affected, and Africa more by the percentage of the land that is affected by land restoration. Therefore, African countries embrace this idea of land restoration, and they out of the 54 countries in Africa, I think 53, if I'm not mistaken, have already set their targets in terms of land restoration. Therefore, they are positively responding to that call. Some are struggling in mobilizing the financial resources to deliver on that promise, resources both from domestic and from international resources. And I think in most cases, these are countries that also are in dire need of mobilizing public business investments so as to invest on land restoration. Let me just again repeat that business has been investing for many, many years in land but mostly in fertile land for agriculture, for other practices. Now we are inviting them to invest in land that may be less fertile so as to bring it back to fertility and to production. And that is, of course, much more difficult to do than inviting someone to come into a new land. As you know, with the population growth, we are encroaching more and more on forest areas, on wetlands, and on areas that should be preserved. Therefore, by reinvesting on land restoration, we are reducing the rate by which we are further degrading on fertile land. So, of course, it's a circle.
Okay. Minister, you have anything you want to say? Okay.
No. Thank you. Now you can join us in plenary so that after a few minutes we will start that.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you for being very patient, and thank you to our panelists for coming to join us.